You may notice a random child throughout the video. That's me. That's me as a boy. It's my new little voiceover avatar thing. I'm trying that out. Hope it's not terrible. Okay. On December 21st of last year, the Storytime animation YouTuber Illymation released a video called Perks of Being the Fat Kid. 2 months later, the anti-woke YouTube channel Think Before You Sleep, hereafter referred to as Sean, hi Sean, responded to Illy's video in a video titled Fat Acceptance Cartoon. Right after Sean posted this response, the comment section on Illy's video went through some changes. It was flooded with hate comments, threats, insults, inflammatory accusations, also a lot of anti-Semitism, so that's kind of weird. When one of her followers reached out on Tumblr to ask if she'd seen the video, Illy replied, and after expressing frustration about the harassment she was receiving, she ended the post by asking her followers to report the video. In response to this one Tumblr post, Sean made a whole new video, Woke YouTuber is trying to deplatform me, in which he accused Illy of leading a campaign of targeted harassment
campaign,
and mass flagging
campaign against me, mass flagging campaign, mass flag his channel, mass flagging
against him and his smaller channel,
deplatform a smaller creator, harass a much smaller creator
in order to deplatform him,
deplatform me, to try and get me deplatformed
and take away his source of income.
Take away my source of income.
The only evidence he has provided for any of these accusations is that one Tumblr post. This new video from Sean brought Illy even more
targeted harassment,
which culminated in her receiving death threats, rape threats, and being doxxed. For her safety, she was forced to leave her home state, breaking the lease on her apartment, which cost her over $10,000 in legal fees. Sean, meanwhile, made out with a slightly better deal: 3 videos, 2.3 million views, 40,000 new subscribers, and a big stack of Google AdSense money. There's so much that I want to talk about from this situation. I want to talk about how Sean spends a good amount of his video insulting Illy's appearance under the guise of giving her tips on how to be more attractive.
She could easily be considered attractive by most people if she just stopped wearing those grandma glasses, picked better clothes, learned how to style her hair instead of always leaving it flat to her head with maximum forehead showing, and watched some makeup tutorials.
I want to talk about how he spent what must have been hours digging around her social media accounts to find photos of her eating junk food and of her body at a time when she weighed less in order to accuse her of lying about her diet.
So now I have to do some investigating to find out what Alyssa's eating habits are. After scrolling down through her community tab, the only thing I was able to see her eating was ice cream. Strike one.
I want to talk about how he had to lie for a lot of these insults, like how the very next post on her community tab after the milkshake thing showed her holding a bag of wheat bread, or how the photo he used to insult her fashion sense by saying she dresses like a homeless person.
Holy shit, that is bad. This girl has millions of followers, yet if you saw her out in public, you'd be afraid that she's about to pester you for spare change.
Was taken while she was hiking, and Sean knew that, but cropped out the identifying information so that his audience wouldn't. The less perceptive ones anyway, given that she's, sitting on a log in dirt. I want to talk about all that, but I have to shelve those points for now because there's a more pressing issue at hand, which is that Sean's videos caused a doxing. On the internet, things like doxing and harassment are often treated as natural law. Mean comments are inevitable. Even if you ask people not to, they'll still leave them. If people are going to take things too far, like doxing, then there's not much you can really do to stop it. This seems to be Sean's perspective on the matter.
This comment brigading behavior appears to just be a fact of nature that creators can't control. So really, it's on YouTube to make an interface change that addresses this problem.
The only real exemption from this excuse seems to be when a creator directly asks their audience to harass or dox someone. If that doesn't happen though, then sorry, it's the internet. Now, while that may be the case in some situations, this is not one of them. Sean didn't ask anyone to dox or harass Illy. What he did do, though, is misrepresent and deceptively edit her video in order to conjure ideas which directly motivated the people who did. And when I say directly, I mean directly. We doxed Illy because she tried to get another popular content creator, Think Before You Sleep, taken down by YouTube, all because he made a video rightfully criticizing her. She is also promoting fat culture and how being fit and working out your body is useless and fatphobic. She also promotes that's an anti-trans slur, and woke culture. That was posted on the website that hosted Illy's doxing information. The actual doxing took place on a different website, and the very first post of the original doxing thread shared these same motivations. We need to dox her because she promotes fat culture, she believes in woke bullshit, and when a based YouTuber like Think Before You Sleep called her out, she threw a fit and asked her fans to mass flag his channel to get it deleted. The people harassing her in the comments are motivated by these same ideas. Illy is woke, Illy wants to deplatform Sean, and Illy promotes obesity. These accusations are being repeated across the internet in videos with millions of collective views. They pervade the doxing threads, sprinkled between a sea of death threats, rape threats, and depictions of Illy committing suicide. These ideas are the reason reason they hate her, and all of them, every single one, was fabricated by Sean. How he did this is the topic of today's video, so let's check it out. Alright, so the first one of these narratives that I want to look at today is the idea that Illy promotes obesity. One of the main concluding points of Sean's video is that Illy's advice is going to kill people by causing them to eat themselves into an early grave.
You know what's great about this advice? Because you conflated being overweight with extreme obesity, so you could say that both are healthy, what's going to happen is that people who watch this video that are 300 pounds are going to say, see, Alyssa is fine with being overweight, I don't have to change either. And then they'll eat themselves into an early grave.
Note that it's not just it might happen, he said that it's going to happen. So it's sort of a direct accusation there, just so we're clear about that. Now, that's a pretty serious accusation, right? So how does he justify it? Well, right before it, he presents what he calls Illy's final piece of advice and uses that as evidence to argue that she is promoting obesity.
All right, let's see Alyssa's final piece of advice.
A carrot isn't an inherent good food, while chocolate is an inherent bad food. Food is just food. No matter how many calories, carbs, sugars, you should feel free to eat whatever food you want to without beating yourself up about it.
I'm done. That was such terrible advice. I don't know how this video could be considered as anything other than enabling food addicts to not fix their health.
So Illy's quotes here, that food is just food and you should eat whatever you want, were the most important pieces of evidence to Sean's conclusion. Accordingly, they were represented in a few other places. In the thumbnail of his video, for example, Illy is holding a sign that reads, "Eat what you want," to an audience of children, while her avatar holds a milkshake and is depicted as being unstable. These quotes seem to be the real sticking point for other creators that covered his video.
Food is just food.
That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Clearly, there's a couple of dumbass arguments that are open to be criticized.
Well, actually, all food is the same. No, you fucking idiot. Of course, all food's not the same.
Remember, she basically says there's no difference between eating a carrot and a cookie or whatever, pure gold. Did she actually say that? That's really funny. Yeah, I mean, the fat acceptance stuff is just gone way too far, I think.
To give up on yourself, your goals, and that food is food.
What you are proposing is very unhealthy and dangerous. What is your problem, you evil, life-destroying monster? You just ruined a bunch of young people's, especially girls' lives. So did she really say this? Is she really going to get people killed? Let's take a closer look at the evidence and find out. So one thing I noticed in Sean's video is that there's a funny cut when he shows this clip. Right after the line, "No matter how many calories, carbs, and sugars," the video skips just a bit. The s'more changes hands, the boy's blood sugar monitor, that's what this is, it just sort of appears on the chair. There's a break in continuity. So I went back to Illy's actual video and see if you can spot what he decided to cut from this sequence.
No matter how many calories, carbs, sugars, whatever is in it. Unless you have life-threatening allergies or dietary restrictions to follow, you should feel free to eat whatever food you want to without beating yourself up about it.
So immediately before she says that fated line, "Eat whatever you want," she added a caveat. She said, "Unless you have life-threatening allergies or dietary restrictions to follow." While this line is being delivered, you can also see on the screen that the boy, who has diabetes, is taking a reading of his blood sugar and then gets the green light, so he's good to go for having a s'more with his friends without throwing his blood sugar out of whack. This line, as well as the depiction on screen, is an acknowledgement that there are some exceptions to her statement, which would include, for example, a diabetic person's blood sugar imbalances, or most importantly for Sean's conclusion, the dietary restrictions recommended to morbidly obese people. He just cut that line right out. And this is important, right? Because this line directly refutes Sean's narrative that Illy is promoting obesity. This phrase, dietary restrictions, rules out the more extreme situations that Sean is referring to when he says that this will cause viewers to eat themselves into an early grave. There's another equally important misrepresentation of what Illy says here, which has to do with context and framing. If you notice, Sean introduces the clip from Illy's video by calling it her advice.
Let's see Alyssa's final piece of advice.
Now, what does he mean by advice? Just general advice or something more specific? Well, seeing as his conclusion from this advice is that Illy might kill fat people by enabling them to overeat, it's safe to assume, I think, that when he says advice, what he actually means is nutritional advice. You know, advice for dieting and weight loss. That's what the conclusion implies. And so, when these lines, "food is just food" and "carrots aren't good" and "chocolate isn't bad," are being presented as dieting advice, then yeah, you already know people were gonna have something to say about that. that, and say about that they did.
S'mores are a diet food. Got it.
So 27 bars of chocolate is equal to a meal of broccoli, grilled tomato, mashed potatoes, and chicken. Nice to know.
I have diabetes type 3. Time to eat 4 trillion Oreos.
It's really funny, that last one, given that Illy specifically accounted for diabetic people, but Sean just didn't show it, so then there was a bunch of comments about diabetes, really good. The other alleged creators covering this video did the same thing.
Carrots are definitely healthier for you than a chocolate bar, so telling kids something otherwise is actually harmful.
What has more calories? 1 pound of broccoli or half a cup of olive oil? Half a cup of olive oil.
Did one of your professional doctors tell you this? Was the nutritionist the one that told you that carrots and chocolates are the same? I can't believe a full-grown adult actually believes this dumb shit. Here's a fact. Chocolate is high in sugar and saturated fat.
Yeah, they just go on like that for like 10 minutes. They sound like they're having a blast, honestly. There must be a floor to critical thinking that when you blow past it, everything just starts feeling like pure euphoria. This response here from both audiences and creators relies on Sean's framing of Illy's words, that they were intended as dieting advice. But the thing is, they weren't. Illy's video has some fairly straightforward themes. She talks about dealing with negative body image, about getting bullied, starting unhealthy eating habits, and frustrations over weight loss. Her video is a direct critique of diet culture and its morality-based food logic.
Diet culture is an entire belief system that associates food with morality and thinness with goodness.
She relates her own experiences to the common occurrence of teenagers dieting despite already being at a healthy weight. Immediately before the good and bad foods clip, Illy introduces a concept called body neutrality, which advocates for removing the moral element from how we view our bodies. She then states that she is about to apply that concept to food. So, given the actual content of her video and the direct link she'd just drawn from moral neutrality to food, when she finally actually says these lines, her intent could not be more clear. She's talking about morality. She's saying that eating carrots doesn't make you a good person, just like eating chocolate doesn't make you a bad person. By presenting only the tail end of this sequence and neglecting to accurately portray the central themes of her entire video, Sean has removed it from all context. The result is that he's framed her as both an idiot that can't do basic math about calories, and more seriously, a dangerous person whose dieting advice will end up with people dead. Along with Sean's conclusion that Illy's advice is going to kill people, he also claims that because of this sequence, the message of her video is that she endorses drug abuse.
Stop writing criticism off as malicious concern trolling when the ending message of your video was effectively, if you can't stop doing drugs, then drugs aren't bad, and you should take whatever drugs you want and as many drugs as you want.
This was yet another inflammatory statement that was mainlined into the beautiful working brains of the people harassing her.
Why did you just sell me drugs?
Next video, the perks of popping pills.
Should I be celebrated for my lifestyle choices? Gather round and cheer me on while I drink heavily 5 days a week. I'm an alcoholic. Accept me.
Here's a comment saying she compared coffee with fentanyl, and then here's another comment saying that she actually said that. The severity of these accusations is then compounded by his immediate reminder to viewers that her audience is probably full of children.
Keep in mind that Alyssa's videos are clearly targeted at children based on the style of animation and the references and jokes she makes.
The implication here is that Illy's video may end up directly harming or possibly killing children. If we hold him to all the assertions he's made here, that's what the video is telling us. And then we remember his inclusion of children in the thumbnail and his later speculations about her child audience.
Considering that in this post you stated that your market is children, do you really think this is being a good role model?
And the results are that his viewers have heard his message loud and clear. She should not be telling children that it's okay to be unhealthy. 4,000 likes. Illy, you're feeding 14-year-old insecure children lies about health. As a soon-to-be doctor, yeah, I'm sure that's true. As a soon-to-be doctor, you are making everything worse for the next generation. Little content warning here for some bad stuff. I hate this lying Jewish blank with all my heart. She needs to die. The new video she made is promoting childhood obesity. She is a cancer to this world and needs to be rotting 6 feet under the ground. This comment is from the doxing thread. They stated they were going to visit her in California. They said they wanted her dead, and at that point they knew where she lived. Thankfully, Illy was able to move before anything violent happened, but if this person, for example, had taken action, Sean's video very well could have been what pushed them over the edge. Before we move on to the next section, I just want to play the part of Illy's video that comes right after the sequence we just watched, but that Sean decided to just leave out.
Oh, great. Now she's glorifying obesity. I'm not glorifying anything. My point is simple. Don't be a dick to fat people. And don't use, I just care about their health, as an excuse. Being fat doesn't automatically mean someone is less healthy or too lazy to look like you or however you think they should look. You don't know these people.
Those are the devil's advocate characters there, advocating for the thing Sean believes and says. It's an interesting little detail. All right, so before we continue, I need to pause real quick to talk about the sponsor of today's video, which is Ground News. So critical thinking is important. One aspect of being a critical thinking enjoyer is being willing to engage with the actual source material of whatever you're learning about. With any story, Ground News will give you a statistical breakdown of how many sources are covering it, where those sources land politically, and the percentage distribution of that bias. With each source and story, you're given information of the political bias as well as ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organizations. Ground News also allows you to compare the headlines from each source that covers the same stories. As far as the news goes, the majority of people don't actually read past headlines, so this feature is super helpful given how heavily slanted this can make them. Go to ground.news/Noah to see through misleading media narratives. Subscribe for 40% off their unlimited access Vantage plan and enjoy that. With my link, Ground News Vantage plan comes out at just $5 a month, which costs less than many of today's cups of coffee in this world. All right, now let's get back to the video. Okay, so the second idea that Sean fabricates in his videos is that Illy tried to deplatform him.
Deplatform me, to try and get me deplatformed, deplatform a smaller creator.
This idea drove the second, more serious wave of harassment, which is what led to Illy's doxing. It was also another one of the explicitly cited motivations of the doxers. Other creators covering the story were very vocally opposed to this idea.
They tried to deplatform. Think before you sleep.
Getting deplatformed when you're an influencer is essentially like being fired.
I am never for deplatforming.
People sometimes just don't get it and they want to deplatform people no matter what.
Don't send hate to him, by the way. Just make sure you harass and deplatform him. 14,000 likes. Just take away his income by completely taking away his channel. 2,000 likes. Is this the channel that's trying to get other channels deplatformed? 5.7 thousand likes. So is this what actually happened? Well, why don't we take a look at the evidence? As I mentioned in the intro, there's only one piece of evidence that Sean has presented for every accusation he's made here, and that's Illy's Tumblr post. Specifically, its last line, which reads, "If you or anyone else comes across this video, please report it for cyberbullying." Now, viewers that are paying attention right now may notice that this post doesn't say anything about deplatforming. This post asks her followers to report the video. Reporting and deplatforming are not the same thing. Just because a report can lead to a deplatforming does not make these terms interchangeable. To understand why that is, let's take a minute to walk through how the deplatforming process actually works. This part will be a bit dry, so I'll throw some visuals up on the screen now to keep things interesting for you guys. Enjoy. In order for a YouTube channel to be terminated, it has to receive 3 channel strikes. Channel strikes are usually issued when a video is reported, that report is reviewed, and the reviewers determine that the video has violated the YouTube community guidelines. I say usually because there's quite a few other things that can happen. If, for example, it's your channel's first time violating the guidelines, you'll most likely get let off with a warning. This warning can be dismissed after 90 days by taking a policy training. If a warning is issued, it can be appealed. An appeal is when you argue your case that the video has been flagged by mistake. If the appeal is granted, then the warning is removed and your eligibility for receiving a warning on your next violation will be reset. Sean has alluded to having his finger on the pulse of YouTube's community guidelines.
Speaking of YouTube rules, and as someone who regularly reads them,
so I wouldn't be surprised if he had a clean record and a warning available to him. I haven't seen him state otherwise. However, if he has violated the guidelines before, then receiving a guilty report would remove his video and give his channel a strike. There's a few other things to go over here, though. Just like the warnings, channel strikes can also be appealed. Were he to receive a strike, Sean would again have the opportunity to argue his case for why he thinks the reviewers got it wrong. If the appeal he submitted were to be granted, his video would go back up and the strike would be removed from his channel. The important thing here, though, is that even if he had been issued a warning, appealed the warning, lost the appeal, then received a strike, then appealed that strike and lost that appeal, finally actually getting a strike, that's still not deplatforming. That's step 1 to deplatforming. As I said before, deplatforming requires 3 channel strikes. What I neglected to mention, though, is that these strikes expire after 90 days. And in order to actually have your channel terminated, you need to get all 3 of them within that same 90-day period. This means that Sean would have to go through this whole process 3 separate times in a period of 3 months or less. This is what YouTube officials refer to as being a very naughty boy. The only possible way he could call Illy's post an attempted deplatforming in good faith is if all those prerequisites had had been met. Since there's no evidence that even a single one of them has, Sean calling Illy's report an attempted deplatforming is at best a very uninformed interpretation of the situation, and at worst, dishonest. Either way, it's a crybaby Olympics gold medal winning complaint. Even if her report had resulted in Sean's channel being terminated, that still doesn't make her report an attempted deplatforming. There's a few reasons for that, and I want to go over them now. I know this is a blast going over the rules. We're having fun, but try to contain your excitement because this information is very serious and very important, I think. Learning time, learning time. So one of the other claims being made to justify this deplatforming accusation is that Illy asked Sean's channel to be mass flagged. She asked her millions of followers to report the video, and this is an especially serious threat to Sean's livelihood.
I told people in her massive 2.5 million person following, my channel is on the line because Alyssa has millions of followers.
But this too is false. In terms of YouTube's review process, mass flagging doesn't actually do anything. The amount of flags that a video receives has no bearing on the reviewer's decisions. Here is YouTube's global head of trust and safety, Matt Halpern, explaining that.
It doesn't matter whether there's one flag, 1,000 flags, 10,000 flags. It literally makes no difference into how the evaluation works or whether content should stay up or stay down.
Here's this guy from YouTube's Creator Insider channel saying the same thing.
Sometimes a video with lots of flags is a result of what the team calls brigading, meaning a large group of people have tried to gang up on the video in an attempt to take it down, even though it doesn't violate a policy. Can they take it down? No. Again, all videos are evaluated under the same policies, no matter how many flags they have.
This term, mass flagging, makes it sound like really scary, mass flagging, oh, it's a massive, huge flag, but it's not. It doesn't affect the review decision. The other point here, though, on mass flagging is that even if it did affect the review system, it wouldn't actually matter in this case because this wasn't mass flagging. The figure being thrown around, her 2.5 million subscribers, it's false. It's literally not true. Illy made this post on Tumblr. At the time of posting, her Tumblr account had 2,400 followers. She didn't post about it anywhere on YouTube. This number, 2,400, is less than 0.1% of her YouTube subscribers. Sean must have known this too because, firstly, even though Tumblr doesn't display followers publicly, followers never transfer evenly between platforms. But mainly because in the screenshot he shows in his video, Illy's post had 97 notes. 97! That's 0.01% of this supposed army of 2.5 million woke orcs, warks, that actually even interacted with what she said. The sheer scale at which this number has been exaggerated here is it's awe-inspiring. It also makes his repeated whinging about a larger channel bullying him just kind of funny to watch.
Obviously, she doesn't care about bullying because she'll openly call her followers to harass a much smaller creator that has 1/3 of her following. By trying to deplatform a smaller creator,
he's maxing out his Amex Platinum victim card. He's pulling up to the Oppression Olympics in a Michael Phelps morph suit. We can see you, man. It's not subtle. The third and final element to this deplatforming accusation is the implication that Illy was false flagging.
By rallying her audience to falsely flag Think Before You Sleep's video.
Send your fans and friends to false flag another individual.
She was false flagging his channel, being malicious and trying to get the video taken down for whatever you can.
People make fun of the leafy style gaming background footage, but I like it, to be honest. I think it's fun. A lot of shapes and colors and bright lights on the screen. It's engaging. All right, so Illy was asking people to report his video while knowing that it wasn't reportable. That's the claim. Now, let's first establish that there's no actual evidence for this argument. All of Illy's posts pretty clearly indicate that her intent in flagging the video was to stop the harassment it was, and still is, causing. None of these posts show her to be knowingly asking for a false flag. Regardless though, let's tame this argument. 2 points are being raised for this claim. Number one, Sean's video wasn't actually cyberbullying, so reporting it is malicious.
I know that my video doesn't break any of them in the hate speech policy or the harassment and cyberbullying policy.
The video you're trying to flag does not qualify as harassment.
In no way is the video cyberbullying.
So firstly, whether or not Sean's video actually broke the rules is not your call. It's not my call. It's not your mom's call. You should call your mom though. It's YouTube's call. YouTube's reviewers decide that. Their opinion is the only opinion that actually matters. And if what you're saying is true, then why are we whining about it? Sean has nothing to worry about. The review will come up negative. If it doesn't, then he can appeal. And if he didn't break the rules, then he'll win that appeal. A review coming up negative doesn't prove ill intent. If that were the case, then every negative review ever made would be a false flag. And that's silly, you know, these things happen all the time. Despite its silliness though, that didn't stop some of these guys from essentially making this same claim.
Do you know what's actually in violation of YouTube's bullying and harassment rules? This Tumblr post.
What she's doing with this post right here does actually break YouTube's terms of service.
Interestingly, Sean doesn't cite the rule that she allegedly broke here, which is why no one else cited it either. They get all of their information from each other's videos and nothing more. Drama YouTube is an epistemological human centipede. I can't find the rule that Sean is referring to here, so let us know when you respond. In the meantime though, what I have is this screenshot from YouTube support telling Illy that it's okay for her to submit the report, even if she's not 100% positive that it applies. That's an important note here, I guess, is that YouTube literally gave her the green light to do this. I probably could have mentioned that sooner, but there we go. Surprise. Enjoy. So now we're down to just the final argument, which is that Illy's report was false flagging because she didn't even watch the video before reporting it. She went solely off of her friend's biased summary, and that's a false flag because she didn't even know what he said.
Make sure to not watch it before doing that, by the way.
Go and report his video that I didn't even watch up to that point.
She hasn't even watched.
She didn't even watch the video, and she even said this herself.
This last argument is purely a moral one, right? Because it has no grounds within the guidelines. There's nothing in the rules that says you can't report a video based on a rundown from a trusted source. They don't make you plug in an eye tracker and play the full thing before you click flag. The moral claim here is that you should hear out the criticism. It's the right thing to do. Until you do, you have no idea what he's saying, whether or not it's actually bullying, and who knows? Maybe he has a point. Maybe it's worth listening to. Since this is a strictly moral question, there's no real objective way to answer it, so I'll just give my opinion. No. Illy didn't ask for this criticism. His video was totally unsolicited. That doesn't mean I think Sean shouldn't be allowed to make his video, but I also don't think that Illy should be expected to sit through it either, especially given the immediate abundance of evidence that the video inspired a harassment campaign. Doesn't strike me as some giant leap in logic for her to assume that it may have been made in bad faith. Like, imagine one of your friends comes to you and says, hey, some random 850,000 subscriber YouTube channel made a weird, dishonest, and unnecessarily mean video about you, and that's when you notice the hundreds of comments harassing you for things your friend mentioned being in the video. If you were to then say, yeah, I'm good on that. Not worth sitting through that probably. That seems like a pretty normal thing to do. Don't mistake my argument here as me saying people should just start flagging videos for no reason just because they don't like someone. That's not what I'm saying, and that's not what Illy did. My point here is simply that the circumstances of this situation to me seem clearly within the bounds of a reasonable response, a practical solution to a pressing problem. And maybe that's not enough for you. Maybe you really do think that she should have watched it. I have seen it suggested by some creators that in this situation and situations like these, creators only have two options.
Either A, make a response video to the response video towards your original video, or B, ignore it and move on.
Who cares if people are mean to you online? Just ignore it. Or respond to it, make content out of it, you know?
Sean seemed particularly enthusiastic on this point.
If you simply did nothing, Alyssa, you had about 4 more days before everyone forgot about you. If you want this to go away, then stop trying to get my video and my channel taken down, and really put a lot of her time and energy into trying to get me deplatformed, when really, she should be busy enjoying her vacation in Japan. Everyone moves on with their life after about a week or two. Except Alyssa.
So setting aside the clearly intimidating language here, I'm gonna be honest guys, I think you all need to take a second, unplug the surge protector at your feet, and step outside of debate lord land into human land. I spoke with some other YouTubers that Sean has made these sorts of unsolicited response videos about, and to this question of why not hear him out and respond, they all said basically the same thing, which was, why the hell would I do that? This is Nicole Raffi. Sean made a video about her called Feminism is Brainwashing Women to Like Feminine Men. Oh man, this is so fun. When I asked about that video, this was her first message. Hey, oh my god, that guy stinks. That can go on the record that I said that.
Oh brother, this guy stinks!
He's made 2 videos about me now, I think, and each time it just brings an influx of sexist and radically far-right men to start picking apart, not even the content that I make, but my looks, my voice, basically everything that does not matter. They also tend to not watch my videos and base their opinions off the title itself, so very very ill-informed community, I gotta say. It's been a hot minute since I watched the video he made about me, but I just remember thinking that he's jumping through hoops looking for a reason to be upset with what I'm saying. What he and his community do is essentially the equivalent of a Reddit snark page, and then the creator has to face an increase in video dislikes, hate comments, threatening DMs, until Sean makes a video on the next person. Another creator, Tiffany Ferguson, whose video, Mr. Beast's Philanthropy Will Not Save the World, was responded to by Sean with his piece complaining about capitalism while being a capitalist. Got her ass. Ooh. Yep, Hassan House, bad. Tiffany also clocked Sean's criticism as being just a trap.
If I did actually get any backlash from his audience, I literally did not see it or hear it. So I guess that's a good thing. That obviously seems like if you respond and try to, react in any way, that seems to backfire for a lot of these creators, as he's talking about, because it encourages him to continue.
I think anyone expecting otherwise just doesn't know what it's like to be a content creator and have this happen to you, especially when the creators in question do not make response videos. And look, I'm a little piggy, okay? I like playing around in the mud with the other little muddy little piggies. But that's consensual, I dove into the pit with my own videos. What Sean is doing to these people is not that at all. So anyways, that's the deplatforming claim, hopefully addressed. If nothing else, these examples should hopefully make you think before you watch, think before you sleep, before you watch yourself thinking about watching Sean's video and going to bed. The last of these three fabricated narratives that I want to talk about today is the idea that Illy is woke. She's been infected by that wokeness, apparently. She's been drinking the woke aid, which is what I call it, because I think being woke is cool. This was the third major motivation for the people who doxed her, and another justification for harassment. Sean is an anti-woke channel, so the label is pretty self-explanatory. He is against things that are woke, therefore things that are woke are, to him and his audience, bad. He supports this complex theory by framing what he calls woke ideas in a negative light anytime he brings them up on his channel. When you cut together a compilation of all the things he does this with, it's pretty funny to watch. In the past, he's used the term to talk about things like economics,
communism. Woke means communism.
Film and media.
Woke comedians aren't funny. This is why the woke crowd continues to remain as terrible writers. Woke television shows and woke movies aren't good.
Health and nutrition.
I'd imagine it's similar in New York, because New York is pretty woke. California, you can't buy regular lettuce. You have to buy organic lettuce.
Business tips.
Or the woke people at the company are truly in the minority, and they get their way anyway because they're willing to get violent, whereas others aren't.
Higher education.
All the universities are super woke. All the schools are super woke. They have systems in place that attracts woke people, like easy money and 3 months vacation.
Fashion and beauty.
If woke people are really focused on the betterment of mankind, then why do they keep making things ugly?
And all sorts of other stuff too.
For the past decade or more, they've been taught that capitalism is evil, they have been taught CRT, they have been taught modern feminism, and they have been taught other woke ideologies.
That's so many damn ideologies, man. I don't know how you guys keep track of all this stuff. It's really impressive, honestly. You take fish oil, you got some fish oil over there? It stands to reason, then, that anyone that has been deemed woke is de facto bad. Thus, even the seemingly simple act of using that label on someone, as Sean did with Illy in his second video's title, is a form of guilt by association. It's psychological priming for the audience to come into the content with a less charitable attitude. As one of his viewers astutely noted in the comment section of his third video, among the many people begging Sean to stop milking the situation for content, this person wrote, "Not saying I disagree or anything, but this is getting kind of repetitive. If I see a woke, fat, or woman in the title again, it feels like that Dog and Bell food experiment. They're catching on to your tricks, man. You better tighten things up, get a different bell or something, because they're gonna get tired of your slop." With Illy, though, it isn't just the video title that he does this with. He also does it throughout the content itself. So in this third section, we'll explore how he both subtly and explicitly implicates Illy in the heinous crime of wokeness. So first up, dumb. Woke people are dumb. They're illogical. They don't know how to research. They put their feelings over facts. They're triggered. You've heard all this before. A good example of this narrative is in Sean's video, Woke People Don't Know Anything. I mean, the title kind of gives it away, right? But let's see what's going on. It's his response to an episode of Jubilee's Odd One Out, where they're trying to find which contestant of a group of feminists isn't actually a feminist. One contestant asks the others how they feel about trans women in women's sports. Another contestant answers, citing an argument that opponents of integration tend to use.
I'm a trans person myself, and I think the root of that problem tends to stem with we're protecting children, but you can't say you're protecting children if you're kicking out trans children.
Sean disagrees.
What? The root of the problem for why people are opposed to trans women participating in female sports as children? No, these are two separate issues. First, the issue with children has nothing to do with sports.
So Sean goes on to give examples of what he's talking about, the quote-unquote real child trans issues, but the main thing here is that he's dismissing the idea that protecting children is a primary argument used in this trans women in sports debate. But that's not true, right? Trans children are currently banned from participating in sports consistent with their gender identity in at least 24 states. There's over 50 more proposed bills to further restrict or outright ban trans women and girls' participation. Some of these bills go down to ages as young as elementary school. One of the main arguments driving these bills is that young female athletes are having their opportunities taken away by young trans athletes due to their alleged competitive advantages.
We're going to protect fairness in women's sports. We believe that it's important to have integrity in the competition, and we think it's important that they're able to compete on a level playing field.
The idea that we have biological boys playing in girls' sports is the biggest women's issue of our time, and we should be fighting that every day.
Just for the record, these bills end up targeting an estimated less than 1% of youth athletes. Also, as of midway through last year, there were a total of 30 trans athletes competing in college sports. So there's more actual bills being proposed than athletes in college, at least. It's definitely a very real, huge, widespread problem that has always been a thing and wasn't just recently adopted as a wedge issue for Republicans. Anyways, so this argument is directly linked to any discussion about trans women in women's sports because, for one, it's literally the same argument. And mainly, in order to make it to women's sports, you have to first go through young women's and girls' sports. And this point is actually brought up by Sean when he mentions youth athletes in an argument he makes 20 seconds later.
The issue with sports is because there are biological advantages that men have over women that make it so average male athletes can beat top female athletes who essentially sacrificed their entire childhood and much of their young adulthood to train for an insane amount of hours so they could be a top competitor in a sport like swimming.
Notice Sean's mention of athletes sacrificing their entire childhoods to succeed in sports. Those childhoods aren't just about training, though. They include competitions. Making it to the top level requires winning competitions, and according to proponents of these bans, cis girls won't be winning them if trans athletes are playing and taking over due to these alleged competitive advantages. So he's immediately wrong about that point, and then contradicts himself literally 20 seconds later with his example. But despite all that, watch how he concludes this sequence.
How can you comment on this topic when you don't even know what you're arguing against?
So there it is. Within the first 3 minutes of the video, he has established his narrative. Woke people are simply too dumb to even know what they're supposed to be being woke about, even though, he was wrong. Doesn't matter. Title, thumbnail, upload, and 730, Jesus fucking Christ. So as far as Illy's video goes, Sean does this same thing. He loops her into this dumb woke person stereotype, but with a different method. It's a quote-unquote criticism of her research. When Illy cites an article from Self magazine in order to define the concept of diet culture, Sean criticizes her for using this source in a way that just doesn't make any sense.
Oh God, please someone tell this girl that quoting a magazine article is not research. Stop acting like it is. That's like saying, according to my friend Rachel, dieting is bad.
He goes on to relate this citation to arguments made in books like Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility, arguments which he claims are unscientific.
I know this metaphor sounds stupid, but if you actually read some of the references that woke people cite, like Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility, they are full of, according to a friend of mine, style arguments. That's not science, that's just someone's opinion.
So, she was defining a term. She cited the magazine for the definition of a term. She wasn't using a statistic or even making an argument. You don't need a scientific study every time you want to do that. Dictionaries would be billions of pages. We would run out of trees. The other strange critique here is that quoting a magazine isn't research. Why is he saying that? If I had to guess, I think it's because he seems genuinely unaware that there's such things as magazines outside of just grocery store tabloids. Every time he ever references magazines in these videos, he shows tabloid style examples and talks about them like they're just those damn ladies with just a damn lady gossip and all that crap.
This video is full of tabloid style research and bad information. Surely a magazine won't misrepresent information or lie to me to get viewership. According to my friend Rachel, dieting is bad.
I just love that though. Magazines are gossip.
Man, I can't read this bullshit. All these zoologists spreading rumors and lies around school about my favorite dogs. It's just the Lion King all over again, man. Fuck this.
He uses this same girl sources argument soon after when the article's author cites a health services journal to define a term.
Then in Aubrey's article, she cites what looks like yet another opinion piece as proof of her arguments. Do any of these people use actual science to form their beliefs?
If you notice, once again, this source is being used to define a word. She's not citing it as a statistic. It's a word, man, not an argument. Nope.
Yeah, man. Hey, man.
That's not an argument.
I know. It's just definitions.
There's no science. No, there's no science here.
Yeah, there's no studies in me, but they're just not supposed
Do
to.
these people even consider that studies should form their beliefs?
Hey, man. I'm not going to argue with you. All right. I'm just trying to help. You seem really worked up. Everything good, man?
Yeah. No, it's things aren't good. I'm getting really tired of not having my own identity. Every 3 minutes, I'm shifting to a new place and a new time. It's stressful, you know, not knowing who you are.
Hey, man, I get it. Look at me, right? Open me up. My insides are full of all sorts of different shit. And my name's Dictionary. You know, I don't want to be named Dictionary. That sucks. There's so many words inside me I could use, but Dictionary? Really? Webster? Fuck off.
The other big, dumb, woke research critique comes earlier in his video. Illy cites a statistic about teenage dieting. In response, Sean finds a study on the topic and then criticizes Illy for that study, even though he isn't even sure if that's the study she used.
So I looked up where Alyssa got the quote, to which she did not properly cite, so maybe this is the correct source? The first problem I see is that this is a sociological study from 20 years ago. Way too old. Studies like randomized surveys are out of date after 5 years because culture can change quickly. The second issue is that this page cites no sources, which means I don't know any of the specific definitions of the information here, so effectively this is an opinion piece, not scientific data. In fact, this page is so old that half the links are broken. Seriously, fire the person who did this research.
So his conclusion there, that she needs to fire her researchers, was reached with criticisms of a study that might not have been hers. Now, let me be clear on this point. Sources should be fully cited. On YouTube, there's no source requirement in the community guidelines, which means that people often don't cite them, and this can be a problem, especially when it comes to misinformation on serious topics. That being said, though, if Sean's criticism had been limited to just that she should have provided a direct link to her statistics, that'd be okay. But that's not what he did. What he did was pull up what amounts to a random study, imply that it was her research, tear the study to shreds because it was a bad study, and then scoop up that unidentified shredded paper off the ground in order to call her a dumbass.
Fire the person who did this research.
You can't do that, man. That's not how research criticism works. I don't even know how research criticism works, but I know it's not that. And also, even if he just criticized her incomplete citation, that'd still be a nitpicky kind of critique because finding actual good data with the information she provided was extremely not hard. When you search teenage dieting National Library of Medicine, which is what was in her video, the shitty study that Sean found was the first result, but the next one, like the very next one, is a far more substantive paper with a bunch of working citations and evidence that Illy's statistics were accurate. And if Sean doesn't like this one either because it's too old, well, here's a newer one with the same numbers and some of them actually showing increases in these dieting rates. So given that Illy's statistics were fine, and given that both of the definitions her earlier sources provided were uncontroversial, why is he doing this? Why is he being so pedantic? And, well, because Illy's supposed to be stupid. He has to build his case that she's dumb. You're not supposed to trust her information, and since her information is, fine, he's got to make her look dumb somehow, so this is how he chose to do it. Despite Sean's lazy research and bad faith nitpicking, or because of it, I guess, he led viewers to the conclusion that she doesn't know what she's talking about, and then carried that conclusion over into his follow-up videos.
If you didn't watch it, how do you know what's in it? Well, a friend of hers told her it was bad. Wait, isn't this the exact kind of research that I criticized her for in the video?
Oh god, please someone tell this girl that quoting a magazine article is not research.
Blah blah blah, cherry-picked, blah blah, non-academic sources. Which is really funny because Alyssa's main sources were a magazine and a fat acceptance advocate. Hell, they didn't even put a person's name on this 20-year-old article.
Maybe this is the correct source. Maybe this is the correct source.
And so, because critical thinking is illegal on commentary YouTube apparently, nobody thought to challenge these claims, and thus one element of Sean's narrative reigned supreme. Illy is a dumb, dummy, woke girl who's doing research for girl dummies. And also, she's dumb and woke.
If you're taking advice from your fat friend and you named him as a valid source, it's GG.
Some of the information she was using in her video as sources were ultimately just opinion pieces not backed by science at all.
Examples of like this occur a lot in the video where Illymation makes like some kind of infographic that doesn't make a lot of sense scientifically and starts kind of citing towards sources that also don't make a lot of sense.
How exactly are you supposed to deconstruct and debunk an argument if you don't understand the source material?
So there we go. That's one board nailed down onto this frame of wokeness. Woke trait number 2 is racism. Wokeness enjoyers are racist. They categorize people by race.
I think this is an incredibly racist narrative that is predominantly perpetrated by woke people, because they are the only ones who are categorizing people by race and gender.
They won't let him say it, or whatever. They won't let him say what he wants to say.
That's why I don't like it when woke groups say horrible things about straight white men and then say you aren't allowed to say anything about their group.
Seriously, guys, this is messed up. Someone should do something about this. One element of this supposed woke racism is, according to Sean, any conversation about systemic racism.
Systemic racism because there's more white people than there are of other races? No, that's just a way of being racist towards white people, I think.
This is important because if he's unwilling to engage with ideas like systemic racism, then his framework of understanding racism is going to be limited to only one type of racism, which is individual or interpersonal racism. Sean's limited framework in this area comes out in videos like this one. The effect woke ideas are having on people. When a contestant in a cut game show is asked why he's unemployed, he responds by saying that the jobs he's applied for have said he's unqualified because he's black. This is how Sean responds to that statement.
What? That is literally illegal, and it's been illegal for over half a century. If what Chris said was actually true, then lawyers would be jumping to help him sue those companies on contingency, and he'd be a millionaire right now.
The old standby. Racism is illegal. Checkmate racism. When Sean hears this statement, he reverts to the assumption that the hiring discrimination which took place must have happened at the individual level, as in this person must have been directly discriminated against based on their race, in violation of these racist hiring laws.
Then we have Chris, who claims he's a victim of racist hiring managers who are attacking him for being black.
Most people would consider that to be an overtly racist act, and the person who did it to be a racist. Now, we don't know the exact details of this cut contestant's situation. However, Sean's assumption that it couldn't have happened because this kind of racism is illegal is very telling. There's a far more likely and very commonplace explanation here, which is, you guessed it, systemic. The laws against racist hiring practices have been in place for over half a century, but despite this, hiring disparity between races is still a huge problem. White people are 50% more likely to get job interview callbacks while holding the same qualifications as non-white applicants, and these rates haven't significantly changed for decades. I'm not sure whether Sean knows this or not, but regardless, his instinctual jump to assume that this person is lying is a product of, among other things, a lack of any sort of systemic framework for understanding racism. So, okay, Noah, what does any of this have to do with Illy? Well, there's 2 points in Sean's video where race is brought up, and both of them are linked with Illy, and both of them, I think, fall under this woke racism category. It's Sean's thing, woke racism. That's not me using it, that's what he would call it, I assume. As we looked at, Sean compares Illy's arguments with those made by Robin DiAngelo in her book, White Fragility, which is an anti-racist type book. As he stated before, this book falls under the sort of anti-white racism he often rails against on his channel.
Like, I'm reading White Fragility right now, and it's extremely racist.
By associating Illy with DiAngelo and her book as yet another woke person making woke arguments, he is drawing on that previously set up framework to imply that Illy is engaging in, or at the very least endorsing, woke racism. The second instance where race is brought up is just one comment that Sean makes about one of Illy's citations. Sean references a passage from this article and summarizes its meaning for the audience.
Or maybe gives some advice on how to eat healthy? Nope, she just says you're a racist if you think being thin is good. Oh no, not again.
Now, Sean didn't explain what he said there, that the author is calling people racist. He just treated it as self-evident, echo chamber moment. But is it? The line he highlights states that there's plenty of racism and anti-blackness baked into this colonial idea that thinness and food restriction equal goodness. The author goes on to elaborate on this point by citing a book on the racist origins of fat phobia. Based on what he highlighted, I think Sean read the line, there is racism baked into the idea, and took that to mean that the author is saying anyone that thinks this idea is a racist, which is, once again, a product of his only understanding of racism being what people do to each other. You're either a racist person or a not racist person, and if you're not racist, just don't even suggest that there's ideas that have any racism baked into them. No. Holding an idea that has racist roots is not the same thing as being a racist in the individual sense. Racism's link to fat phobia is historical and systemic, and as the author notes, the idea behind it is very common. And because of that, he doesn't want to hear about it. He doesn't want his audience to hear about it, so he does their thinking for them and sums the passage up in his own biased way.
She just says you're a racist if you think being thin is good. Oh no, not again.
To some of you, I imagine that this point about racism might seem like a bit of a reach. Like, these two examples are a very small part of his video, and the doxers didn't say they doxed her because she's like Robin DiAngelo, or because she cited an author that cited another author that wrote about racism in a way that wasn't pro-racism. But that's kind of the problem, right? Illy doesn't have to have any direct connection to these ideas to be what Sean considers a purveyor of woke ideology, because woke ideology is an umbrella term that he uses to call things dumb and bad and racist and dangerous and so on. The mere fact that she's associated with such people in any way is more than enough to shoehorn her into the stereotype. Also, the doxers are extremely racist, so it does make sense that an anti-racist book and a historical exploration of racism's modern effects would be on their ideological hit list. Surprising, I know, that racists don't like that sort of stuff. Who could have thunk? The last wokeness narrative here is that Illy, like many woke people, is a danger to children. Like the others, the groundwork for this idea has been laid in previous videos. For example, in his video, The Consequences of Woke Parenting, the woke parents in question are parents that support their kid in doing drag performances. In the video, Sean claims that child drag performers are only doing it because the adults around them want to fulfill their weird fantasies.
Are we just letting kids do whatever they want with no parenting at all? Or are these kids actually being used as a means to an end to fulfill some kind of weird fantasy of the adults around them?
He makes this same point when the main kid in the video takes off his cape during a performance. Sean compares this to a stripper at a strip club and the crowd of people to strip club patrons.
Wow, that crowd cheered very loudly after he removed his cape. Interesting. What do you call it when a person is praised for removing clothing while dancing and then receives money for their performance from the audience?
Later, he heavily implies that the drag community is full of pedophiles due to the material they promote.
Well, considering the material, the people who have that take probably need to spend some time behind bars.
The material in question here, the stuff he shows right before that statement, is clips of the kid just kind of flipping around on stage, goofing around. It sounds like he's seeing something in these clips that I'm just not seeing. A little weird, but his argument here is simple. There's villains in his story. The villains are preying on children for their own sadistic fantasies, and most importantly, these villains are woke. We've already seen Sean's frequent allusions to Illy's child audience and her bad influence on them.
Considering that in this post you stated that your market is children, do you really think this is being a good role model?
Not that it matters, at all, but just for the record, this isn't actually true. Illy sent me her audience statistics, and the under 18 number is tied for her lowest viewer demographic. But regardless, we've seen the thumbnail, which clearly depicts cartoon Illy giving children her patented and very real and harmful dating advice that is definitely what she said and exactly how she meant it and in context.
Here's a fact. Chocolate is half a cup of olive.
He shows a screenshot from her Tumblr where she reblogged a screenshot of a tweet with a joke, Jesus Christ, about the Taco Bell Baja Blast Gelato, and then he said this.
And please stop promoting fast food to kids and giving it social proof.
See, this would be so funny just for how ridiculous it is. She's promoting fast food by reposting a picture of ice cream to her 2,000 Tumblr followers. This guy's a fucking social media macro fascist. You're not allowed to post food anywhere just in case a kid sees it and immediately sprints to the grocery store to buy 1,000 of whatever they saw and go home and eat it all in one sitting and die instantly in some Tom and Jerry style explosion. Or how he highlights the caption she added that says hell yeah, as if that's some smoking gun of her teenager bound gelato MK Ultra. That would be funny if it weren't being used in part to basically accuse her of manslaughter.
Eat themselves into an early grave.
Or I guess here, child slaughter. No, not child's laughter autocorrect. I wish. It's child slaughter that he's accusing her of.
Oh, seriously?
I know, it's ridiculous, right? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that seems like a very extreme accusation to be making.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why people didn't notice that, but
yeah, super weird.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna get back to it.
Yeah, no, of course, go ahead.
All right, I'll see you later. Great work today, by the way.
Yeah, holy shit, your spelling was atrocious.
What?
What's up?
You say something?
No, man.
I'm pretty sure I heard you say that my spelling...
No, I didn't say anything, man. You're hearing things, man.
I mean, you're right. I am hearing things. I'm talking to myself in the microphone as if I'm two different people.
Yeah, you are, or we are, or I am. Okay.
Cut it. Cut it. All right, so in this video, Sean's biggest example of Illy's harm to children has to do with her politics.
Alyssa loves to abruptly insert her leftist politics into videos for kids.
The video he's referencing is about a kid that came into Illy's class all fired up after learning about some of the human causes of climate change. When Illy is supportive of the kid's response, Sean is very normal about it.
Yes, because telling a little kid that the world is being destroyed is completely appropriate and not traumatic at all.
Traumatic. I mean, yeah, climate change is scary, you know, but what does he want her to do here? Lie? Tell them it's not real, that we're not doing the things that we are doing to destroy the earth? We are. All of these perceived threats, these elements of wokeness, are being stacked on top of one another. They're overlapping and multiplying into a giant big woke monster, the result of which is a deeply negative psychological bias towards anyone that's seen to be endorsing that monster. And when that's tied in with more serious accusations like harm towards children and being a danger to people's lives, then yeah, of course the audience members will hate this person, regardless of what they've actually said or done. When this vague concept of wokeness is built up as being essentially a cancer to the world, fighting against it is basically the most brave and noble thing you can do. And one way to do that for these guys is doxing. So yeah, they did it. Mission accomplished. I imagine there's a handful of you that may be asking here, Noah, isn't all this just guilt by association? Sure, the doxers said that they hate fat acceptance, censorship, and woke ideology, but a lot of people hate those things, and they're not doxing anybody. How can Sean be blamed for a few whack jobs? And well, there's two things I'd like to say to that. Firstly, Sean and the doxers don't just happen to hold the same opinions in some unrelated way. He's the reason they hold them. These ideas didn't exist before his videos. A great way to see that, aside from what we've already looked at, how he made them up, is by looking at how Illy's video was received before Sean's viewers brigaded the comment section. If you scroll down 2 months into the comments, what you find is an overwhelmingly positive response. Viewers were helped by her video's honesty about her experiences with bullying and negative body image. As a person with anxiety, it is really hard for me to not feel insecure. My friends are always prettier than me, so when they say I am so ugly, it hurts me. This video really helped me understand myself. Thank you, Illy, for sharing your story to all of us. I needed this because even though I'm 11 years old, I have to deal with this every day, and so does my friend. He is always fat shamed by some of our friends at school, and I feel bad for him every day, and all I can do is try to help him any way I can. Thank you so much for addressing this. Thanks for making me feel like I can still be pretty despite my body type not being exactly the same as my friends. Other viewers related to her struggles with shame-based dieting. My first non-consensual diet was at age 11. The shame. This video truly made me cry. I've struggled with eating disorders, and every time I see myself, I can't help but cry. I've been on a relapse recovery cycle, and this video makes me feel better. Also notable here is the amount of people who were helped by her video that weren't even fat. They struggled with the same issues of body image and unhealthy dieting, and found them in Illy's video because that's what Illy's video was about. I am very skinny. I have been told to eat more, and asked if my parents feed me. These things hurt me. I still have not been able to gain weight, but I'm happier than I've ever been. I can relate to a lot of stuff that you said in this video. Thank you. I was never the fat kid. I can't imagine how it was for you. I'm actually the fake skinny one. I also feel extremely guilty, sad, and angry at myself for eating a single spoon of ice cream because of my high cholesterol. I'm 17. I can't find pleasure in almost any physical activities in my life. I'm going to college soon, and I don't know if I can ever have a healthier lifestyle. I still don't know what to do, but your video made me happier about it all. Thank you. Your video on diet culture and being a fat kid really helped me. I struggled with an eating disorder since I was 11, but I got out of it a year ago. Your videos made me feel better. Your content has really made a difference in my life. I've started going to the gym, seeing a therapist, and doing meditation. Thanks to your motivation, you saved me, and I'm grateful for that. The only way that someone could have gone from this initial reaction to overt hatred, threats, and accusations of literal killing is if they'd been led that way by a video like Sean's. He didn't expose any hidden messages here. He didn't unveil any secret evil plots. He created this by misrepresenting the video. He did it to make people mad, and it worked. The other reason I don't think this is just guilt by association is because Sean didn't just give them these ideas, he also gave them his inflammatory conclusions to those ideas. She isn't just pro-fat acceptance. No, she wants people to eat whatever they want, even if they're on the brink of death.
And then they'll eat themselves into an early grave.
She isn't just woke. No, her wokeness makes her a literal danger to children. She's okay with them being traumatized.
And not traumatic at all.
She isn't just pro-censorship. No, she wants to maliciously terminate Sean's channel.
Deep deplatform me,
and ruin his life when all he did was criticize her.
Actual legit criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Criticized her.
Constructive criticism.
I don't think that means that criticism should be banned on YouTube.
He had some pretty good criticisms in his video.
Illymation, who literally cannot take criticism at all.
That's literally all he did, was criticism. He's just trying to help out. Do I think that Sean made his video with the intent of Illy getting doxxed? No, I don't. He's well aware that a video of his causing a doxing isn't a great look for his channel, which is probably why he has yet to comment publicly about it despite being well aware that it happened. And yeah, he is. Here's him acknowledging it in a Twitter DM to Illy's friend Dylan. Far from apologizing like, you know, a normal fucking person, he did the opposite. He, in the most condescending way possible, placed the onus on Illy to apologize. That was the only way to get the harassment to die down, apparently. Also noteworthy from this DM is Sean's insistence that Illy keep quiet about the doxing. I'm not sure how true this is about it potentially making things worse if she says anything, but clearly Sean would benefit from her following his instructions here, whether it made her safer or not. Also, there's this weird blackmail thing too about this community post that he made that he called an apology being intended to make it easier for Illy to do her own apology, which if you actually read this post, it's complete bullshit. It's 10,000 words to say, no, I should have worded it better, but I wasn't wrong. And despite that, his viewers still got mad at him for doing anything other than continuing to harass her. Great community there. One that would definitely be super receptive to an apology from someone they hate more than anyone else in the world. Also, as it was happening, Sean was actively reading the comments and responding to people before and after instances of doxing. So yeah, he knew. However, whether he meant to or not ultimately doesn't matter. He produced such a heavily biased and dishonest critique of her work, her personal story, then concluded with multiple serious, inflammatory, and false allegations. Whatever his intent might have been, she is being harassed, she was doxxed, and these things would not have happened if it weren't for what he did. Sean has responded to my videos before, and I do hope he responds to this one. I personally would like to hear his explanation for, all that shit we just looked at. The main reason I hope he responds is because his channel isn't going anywhere, so it would be good if he acknowledged this situation so that hopefully his future videos don't lead to their targets getting doxxed again. That would be a positive outcome, I think. But what do I know? I'm just a little woke guy. Illy is currently safe, but as I mentioned in the intro, the legal fees this situation have stacked up have been a lot. So she started a GoFundMe. I'll leave that linked in the description if anyone would like to contribute. If you like the video and want to support the show, you're welcome to join my Patreon. Scotch Draws for the amazing work on the video thumbnail. Thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you in the next video. No, I don't have a Twitter, but Patreon, that's where you should follow me. Okay, see ya.